is Chris from ChristopherHole.com. Today I'm going to talk about what I consider to be the #1 diet on the planet. I'm going to share with you a few different bits of information. I'm going to start off with a quote from a book, then I'm going to try and bring it into a little bit more context, but I think the quote from the book puts quite a good context on what I'm going to say, but I'll obviously share some of my experiences around it as well. So the book is called Food Politics. The author is Marion Nestle, and it's in the preface of the first edition. So it's right at the start of the book, and it was, when I read it, I sort of thought to myself, well, I could quite happily put this down now. She summarized everything that I was currently thinking. I could have put the book down and just said, what a great book. She's hit the nail on the head, and then just sort of carried on with life, if you will. But on that note, the first couple of sentences of the preface, she says, as an academic nutritionist, I grapple on a daily basis with what I see as a central contradiction between nutrition theory and practice. On one hand, our advice about health benefits of diets largely based on food plants, fruits, vegetables and grains, has not changed in more than 50 years and is consistently supported by ongoing research. On the other hand, people seem increasingly confused about what they are supposed to eat to stay healthy. And from my reading around the subject of nutrition and within the subject of nutrition, that was what I was finding. Now, I'm the type of person who will not just read one bit of information, I'll try to read as many as I can. But what I'll also do is I'll look for the information that is consistent between a lot of bits of information. I'll read books that potentially support what I believe, but I'll also read books that potentially challenge what I believe. And I'll try and again find consistent patterns between the two. And I'll look for information that has stood the test of time. So not only will I read the new research, I'll also read the old research. So what I'm trying to gain as a professional in the industry is I'm trying to gain a breadth of knowledge, so across what supports what I believe and what challenges what I believe, trying to find common threads. But what I'm also trying to do is not only try and get a breadth of knowledge, I'm trying to get a depth of knowledge with regards to time. So I'm looking at what have people said through history. So as she mentions there, in the last 50 years, you can go back further and talk about what people thought of plant-based diets. You can go way back to the ancient Greeks and the Egyptians and so on and so forth, and gain information about what they thought of a plant-based diet. So what I've tended to find is this information consistently shows up with regards to health. So I wanted to share those couple of sentences because that pretty much summarizes the last 10 years of nutrition research that I've been doing. On the one hand, we've got the information is consistent. The information isn't false, if you will. But on the other hand, we've then got people going, I don't know what I should be doing. How should I be being healthy? And then you've got all of the cultural issues, the social issues, the behavioral influences that go on around diet. Because if you just look at the science, look at the consistent science, again across the board of nutrition and through time in nutrition, you'll tend to find plant-based diet always comes out saying it's more healthful, or this promotes health, rather than this demotes health, if you will. So whether you agree with what I'm saying or disagree with what I'm saying, the one thing that's been consistent, as Marion Nestle mentions, over the last 50 years, but you can trace it back even further if you want to. So throughout time, the one thing that's been consistent with regards to being a healthful diet is a plant-based diet. Now, I know a lot of people will be talking about, the different foods they eat, the animal foods they eat, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not necessarily an advocate for everyone giving up all animal foods, because some people might not want to. That's fine. But what we have to understand is the reason most people eat animal foods is based on some sort of tradition, culture, social, or something that isn't necessarily health. If we just come from a pure health perspective, plant foods are more healthful than animal foods. Or a diet based on, let's just say, 80 or 90% plant food will be more healthful than a diet based 80 or 90% on animal foods. So it's very much bringing it into a degree of context so we can better understand and better um, communicate the benefits of what health is and then what promotes health rather than what we think promotes health. Because if we want to be objective about it, I would always suggest someone who disagrees with what I'm saying, okay, go and read all the information that doesn't support your view. That's something I've been able to do because that's something I do with myself, and that's what Plato would say, which was you go and read the angel's advocate, which is what supports you, and the devil's advocate, which is what challenges you. What you then are able to do is have a more objective view, and you can then make more of an informed opinion. Because through my teaching career, one thing I was finding is when I would mention this, is a lot of people who would have a bias towards certain animal foods, they would come up very strongly with arguments against it. And my first response is, yes, okay, I understand that. That's absolutely fine. I've read the same text. I've read the same information. But what we have to look at is a bigger picture here. So can I suggest you go and read these books or these articles or these websites? And what you would find is they wouldn't do it. So what they're basically doing is they're not basing their information on a more informed and a more whole, unbiased viewpoint. They're very much making the decision on a biased viewpoint, and whatever that bias is up to them. So it's very much being able to look at the information more objectively, which basically means unbiased, and just look at what's being said consistently across the information and through time. So it's very much being objective about it rather than being subjective about it. Because that's what I found in the industry is a lot of people are very subjective about the information because it supports what they like, or it supports what they enjoy, or it supports the bravado that comes with what they do, if that makes sense. So if we are talking about the number one diet on the planet, so I'll kind of come full circle now, so hopefully I've built a little bit of context, but I'll come back full circle, and just to say that in my opinion or my belief, whatever you want to call it, which is based on a broad array of knowledge and a broad depth of knowledge with regards to sort of the time frames that I'm talking about, the number one diet on the planet is a plant-based diet. It's been consistently shown not only through the last 50 years, that's been supported by ongoing research, but way beyond that, back to the days of the ancient Greeks, the ancient Egyptians, so on and so forth. So if we want to experience more health, it's starting to base more of our diet on plant foods, getting to know the ingredients and then getting to know different recipes and then being able to put those recipes into meals and then enjoying the foods that can promote our health rather than demote our health. So hopefully this has been insightful. Hopefully you've agreed with some of it and possibly you've disagreed with some of it. But take the information as the information. If you don't believe what I'm saying, go and read through time, go way back into the ancient Greeks and the ancient Egyptians and read about plant-based diets. Read about plant-based diets now. Read across as many diets as you can. Read about veganism, vegetarianism, pescatarianism. Read all the different diets. Read about the Western diet, how people use that diet, so on and so forth. So I'll end on this. So just to sort of again, the number one diet on the planet, in my opinion, if you will, is a plant-based diet. If you want to experience more health, start increasing your plant-based foods, plant-based meals, and therefore into a more plant-based diet. So many thanks for listening. My name is Chris from christopherhole.com. I will speak to you soon.